Welcome to Design to Sell, the podcast where interior design and real estate development come together to create spaces that move markets. I'm Caitlin, your host, here to share the strategies behind designs that don't just look good, they sell. Welcome back, everybody, to Design to Sell. Thank you again so much for listening. I wanted to mention that during all of these episodes, you can also visit my website, www.caitlinmortondesign.com, and receive free downloadable spreadsheets. This includes contracting checklist, flip checklist, and even some of the financial programs that I personally use to keep myself on budget for a flip or new build. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Go visit, subscribe, sign up, and you'll get all of the things that I personally use. So let's move on. For today's episode, we are going to be discussing the main question that I get even from seasoned flippers. And that is, where do I even start designing my flip? Which is such a good question because a lot of people jump into flips and they just start ripping stuff out and they kind of go in without a plan. And if you don't have a plan, that is the quickest way to destroy your ROI. Without a plan, that means that contractors are going to start charging you for change orders and you're not going to have a very good vision, and it's going to come off when you go to list the home. Buyers can always feel when something's not right. Buyers often buy off of feelings and emotions, and they may not be able to pinpoint exactly what's wrong, but they will know something's wrong. For example, I recently went into a flip that I wanted to preview that was already done, and they had some really, really great top of the line finishes. But then there was other things that were done that weren't so great, that were left from the old design. The house they were designing was very modern. However, they still left a lot of the moldings, the old doors, the old casings around the doors, and to save money because it can get expensive. However, some of those things are things that buyers notice where they think, well, they spent all this money on great cabinets, but why'd they keep the old doors or the old casings that don't match the base moldings? So these are things that a lot of buyers, they wouldn't be able to pinpoint as to what it is, but they just kind of feel like, well, this wasn't quite done exactly how we would want it. It just feels undone still. So I'm going to lead you today on where to start for designing your flip. It is very important to remember. So in my book, in Design to Sell, I say design is not decoration, design is strategy. Your flip's profit margin lives and dies by your design choices. Here's why. Buyers don't pay top dollar for potential. They pay for perceived value. A home is only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. Smart design drives buyers' emotion. It makes them more competitive with offering, and it adds to your appraised value. Design decisions dictate every contractor's move from layout to lighting. If you do not have a plan and you go in it too blind, a contractor is not going to know where to set things. The second demo is done is where you start all of your rough-ins for lighting, plumbing, anything that is basically behind the walls. You need a plan for that. You need to know what you are going to be doing. If you don't have a plan, it's like designing or building a home without engineer plans or a blueprint. You may end up building the home eventually, but it's probably not going to be what you intended. And you're probably not going to make any money. So it's very important to start out with the flip with a plan, a design board, something that you can curate to go off of for the contractor. So let me walk you through the 5-step process that I teach. Remember, you need to know your buyer. Every buyer in every city is different. Everybody's looking for something different. Everybody has different needs, whether it's a family community or a high retirement community, or if it's a young community where maybe they're not starting their family. Things like that, you really need to know. And you need to know what they're looking for because each generation has different needs and wants in what they're looking for their home. So remember, you're not designing for your own taste, you're designing for profit. So ask, who's the buyer in this neighborhood? First-time home buyers looking for something different. Downsizing retirees, like I just mentioned, they would be looking for something different. Families with kids, they're looking for more neighborhoods. Your design choices, the materials, every item of that design plan needs to speak to your buyer. You need to start that emotion right away. Secondly, walk through your property with intent. Do a focused walkthrough of your property. What are the structural elements saying? What structural elements can be changed and what will not bring you back in the ROI? A lot of times people think making structural changes that need engineering will help your IRA, and sometimes they don't. A lot of times they may not. So that's really important to understand is the structural changes that you would like to do going to bring you back in your ROI? So what can be upgraded to maximize that ROI? What is just cosmetic and low cost to change? And what are you wanting to set the tone for your entire design? What kind of emotion are you wanting to provoke from your buyer? If you're looking at a first-time home buyer, they want to walk in and have it be turnkey. So you may be looking at designing a home that is more modern, that they don't have to do anything to. Also, if it's a family, are you looking to design a home where they can envision themselves having Christmases in a family room where it's more of an open living space and they can entertain for their children's birthday parties? You really need to know what is your buyer's intent for that home. The next thing you're going to want to do is identify the selling zones. In Design to Tell, I talk about value centers, the areas that seal the deal. So where are the areas that you're going to want to spend most of your budget? That would typically be where the primary is going to be spending the majority of their time. So the kitchen, the living space, the primary's bathroom and bedroom. And also, most importantly, first impressions, your curb appeal, exterior. You need to make sure that when they pull up, you're giving them no reason to not get out of that car. You want them to get out and you start that emotion straight from the curb appeal, right at the entry. If your budget is limited, spend most of your budget in the curb appeal and then go inside and start offering your budget towards where you're going to get your highest returns on the interior. You really want to make sure that those 3 items, the kitchen, the primary, and the exterior curb appeal, is where you're spending most of your time and budget on. Next, you're going to build your design board. This is my personal favorite because I just love curating the feeling and the emotion in the design board. If you create your design board and you aren't feeling something yourself or you're not excited about it, a buyer is going to tell. Create a design board that flows, that every room has a purpose and every room flows together, but is uniquely different. Don't design on the fly, build the design board. You need to create paint swatches, flooring options, cabinet and hardware styles. You also are going to want to create the lighting, your tile combos. And by doing this, how I do this is I create a design board. I typically actually do it off of Keynote and create a whole pamphlet of what I want the home to look like. This enables you to look at the design board and its entirety to make sure that everything flows together, but also gives each room its own characteristics. By doing this, you want to create every element in each room that you want to do, as well as creating the budget that you have. So that way you can really stay on track. If you coincide both the design board and the budget, you're able to see where you can take things away or where you can add things. This is really helpful to start at the very beginning. This way, it keeps you in line with your budget. And then it also gives you a very detailed plan on where you're going to want to go and what you want to do. So that way, when you hire your contractors, there's a plan from the beginning. This helps lessen change orders from contractors and also enables you to build a contract with your vendors to make sure that this plan stays on track and on budget. And if they deviate away from that plan, then they get charged for it, which is very important. Charge orders were meant for a contractor to charge if the client, so you who is flipping the home, changes something. For example, if I all of a sudden go through demo and I decide, actually, I do want to rip down this wall and change this, that would signify a change order. A change order is not meant for a contractor to decide that they weren't making enough money, so now they're going to charge order you until they decide they're making enough. So creating a plan at the beginning and a clear and concise picture of what you want to do helps lessen that. Remember that you need to align your design and budget. Design big, but spend smart, and that there are always a ways to achieve high-end looks on a budget, from stock cabinets with custom paint to luxury vinyl planks that look like hardwood. You also, in order to get a marble look, there's porcelain, and there are so many ways. Again, if you go and visit my website, I will actually go ahead and post a lot of the vendors that I personally use to get the best price for everything. So here are the top 3 mistakes a lot of people make. Without a plan and without your design board, it is very easy to go through the flip and start changing your mind mid-renovation. Again, changing your mind mid-renovation leads to delays, it leads to change orders, and it often leads to confusion among your crew. So unfortunately, what can end up happening is they may do something wrong, and then you're going to have to pay to redo it because you changed your mind midway. And it's creating confusion amongst everybody. Without clear communication with your team and your design, you're going to start dwindling down on that ROI. Also, do not design for Instagram. This is a big one for me because of the fact that A lot of people do. And it's great if you're doing an Airbnb, designing for Instagram is great because a lot of people want to go to Airbnbs and take pictures and, create the gram. And that is fine. But if you're designing a flip and you're trying to maximize your ROI, this can really hurt your budget. If you are designing things that you think look cool for Instagram, unfortunately what can happen is you're probably pigeonholing yourself into a very specific look, which lessens your buyer pool. Also, another thing that a lot of people forget to do is look at the layout. When designing a flip, I always, always, always recommend doing a as built, which is a floor plan of the property. So this way you can take a look at it and really look at the layout. The layout is so important because flow really matters. You could have the best designed house there is on the market, but if the flow and the layout is odd, then it will suffer and you will lose your ROI. People are looking at the entirety of a home, and gone are the days of being able to do lipstick on a pig. You really need to look at the layout. Always, always, always do a as built before you start the design process and before you start any demo work. Second thing that you're going to want to do is really create an action checklist. If you're in the early stages of your flip, here's your design to sell checklist for week 1 of design planning. Define your ideal buyer, walk the property, and identify what stays and what goes. Create an as-built to help you decide what is going to stay and what is going to go. If engineering needs to be brought in, you're going to want to do that before you rip anything down. So you can weigh the cost and reward. A lot of times, an engineer may tell you you need to put a structural beam in order to open up a room that maybe doesn't need to be quite opened up. Or you may decide this floor plan is horrible and I need to open this up and really gut it so we can start over. If that's the case, you do want to create an as-built and get a architect in there to help you create a proper floor plan. Next, you're going to want to focus on the kitchen, bath, and curb appeal. Those are the areas that you will design around. Once you create a kitchen and bath design and the curb appeal, the rest will just come together. You really want the heart of the home to speak to your buyer, and then design the rest around that. You also want to build a mood board and key finishes and fixtures. Order samples. Most places are going to allow you to order samples for free. Make sure you get those samples in. Feel them. Do they feel cheap, or does the product look really good for such a budget price? Those are all really important things that you're going to want to check with when building your design board, especially when you're trying to cross-reference everything and every selection with your budget. Don't even look at things that are outside your budget. Create that budget and then create your design within that budget. Finalize all your design decisions before you start demo. Like I said, this keeps everything aligned and efficient. Without a plan, you go into this blind, and that will really cost you money. To wrap up this episode of Design to Sell, I really wanted to focus on helping you reframe how you think about flipping a design. I want you to retrain your mind in how you do things and how you design. And remember, when designing a flip, take your emotion out of it and put the buyer's emotion in. If you want this 5-step framework in writing and visual guides and checklists, go ahead and follow me at www.caitlinmortondesign.com or follow me on Instagram for updates. I also am going to start posting in my website extra little tips that you can follow along with. So because flips aren't just built to sell, they're designed to sell. Enjoy, everybody, and I hope that you enjoyed this podcast. Thanks for listening to Design to Sell. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and share. For more tips, inspiration, and behind-the-scenes content, follow us on Instagram at Caitlin_Morton_design or visit us at www.caitlinmortondesign.com. Until next time, keep designing with purpose and selling with style.